everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. In this video we are going to be painting another hero from Zombicide Green Horde by Simon Games. This is, how do you pronounce that, the Marquis de Roget? Marquis? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments below how you're supposed to say this guy's name and what does that mean. And then I just want to take a minute to set a motivational challenge to you all. I did this at the start of the Green Horde. It was massively helpful for me and motivating me. This is now the 5th Green Horde video in a row. For the 6th one, what I thought is we'll get to 5,000 subscribers. That is only 60 more subscribers. So if you like this channel, if you like these videos, do please hit subscribe, or just a single Patreon supporter joining. If you are enjoying this channel, do check out the Patreon link in the comments below. The reason we're trying to gain more subscribers is it grows the channel massively. The more subscribers you get, the more views you get, the more the channel just snowballs. And then the reason to grow the Patreon, it does help improve the channel, better equipment, better lighting. I get to buy paints to show you guys, let you know about that. And then the Patreon have got all these reward levels where everyone gets the Discord channel, early access to content, you get to vote on things, and there's going to be painting competitions in the future where you can win stuff. Let's go on with painting this guy. But speaking of Patreon, this model was picked by Stephen on Patreon. It was his request rights pledge. That's another level of Patreon support you can gain, and he gets to pick a model every week. So he painted this guy. I'm going to call him Roger for short, I think, if I mention his name again, because I've got no idea how to pronounce his name. But I'm going to paint his skin in Vallejo's Khaki there, and then he's got quite a lot of sort of orange clothes, his like underlayer, his sort of shirt at the bottom. So I'm going to use Dwarf weird as well. Dwarf Skin for the orange levels, but both. So I haven't primed this model. This is just as it came out of the box. I tidied it up as I always do, but I don't bother showing you that every time. But these are Vallejo's game color, which you're probably used to me saying now, and these work as a primer and a base coat. And I find when I'm doing sort of individual models like this, it's just so much easier not to go outside and spray prime just a single model. So that's why I shortcut that. If you don't have these colors, just prime it. Prime it in either an army paint color primer. That might save you some work, but he's a bunch of colors. It's probably a pointless venture. What's probably better is just do it in matte white, something like that, and you'll be able to paint on top of him. Then I'm going to attach him to my hobby holder because this is going to be a fiddly model and I am going to need my hobby holder. I do try and avoid using that in the videos just because it does get in the way of the videoing sometimes, not because I don't need it, because I need it every single day. When I'm not painting on camera, I always use my hobby holder. If you're interested in this, I get this asked quite a lot. There is a link in the description below, and there's a 10% off code as well, so you can save a little bit of money if you're interested in a hobby holder. Next is Electric Blue, again by Vallejo, again a game color. I'm going to be painting that for his sort of cloak, his coat, his upper garment. Nice, really bright blue for that. Royal Purple by Vallejo's next, and that is going to be for, he's got sort of this scarf, sash maybe you'd call it, wrapped around him. So that's sort of his tummy, and it hangs down as well. And then I'm going to freehand paint some of that up his chest as it's depicted in the artwork. Speaking of the artwork, I did notice this model, the sculpt and the artwork differ massively. There is loads of detail that's just not on the sculpt, but it is in the artwork. Now, some of it I am just going to paint on freehand, like that purple up his chest. I just very carefully painted a little bit of blending that with the blue. I'm just making it look like the artwork as best I can. Same on the bottom here. There is no detail on that model to suggest the bottom should be purple, but in the artwork it's purple and gold. I'm just going to do it purple. Just adds a little bit of more, it's more interesting, isn't it? Just off camera, I just quickly primed his boots and his hair and his sword in just khaki because I had it lying around, and that gives it a nice prime because I don't have Vallejo's game color black. So here I'm using Army Painter's Dead Black, and that will not work without priming the model. So I just primed it before, but you can't really tell because it's almost the same color as the sculpt was originally. And I'm going to use this Dead Black to paint all his boots in and his hair as well. Here you see I had to bring out the holder, let's call it the handle for the hobby holder now, because it's just, I was finding it really difficult not to keep touching the model and taking off the paint that I'd put on, especially once I've done his hair. I'm just going to rub all of that off if I don't put that handle in the way, protecting it, stopping me doing that. I'm also painting on, he's got a couple of straps across his chest, which are both black, and I'm going to do his belt in black as well, and he's got a little bit of belt that dangles down. On his back, he's got 2 sheaths for his swords. So I'm going to paint both of those in black as well. For basically this whole model as well, hopefully you've noticed, I'm just using that Rosemary & Co. brush that I use. This is the 3/0, and I think I just basically do the whole model. It's got such a fine tip on it, fine point, whatever you'd like to call it. It's really, really good. I'm able to do, it's big enough that I can do the small model like this quite quickly, and it's got fine enough point. I can do the details as well. I don't switch later on either. I just mention that while I think of it. Bonewhite, that's by Vallejo. I'm going to paint on that sort of wrist thing. He's got that frilly thing on his left hand. Also going to do his glove on his right hand. And then, which reminds me, I painted his skin in holding the sword at the beginning. That should be Bonewhite, and I do correct it later on. I also do his trousers that you can just see above his boots in Bonewhite. I'm going to use bright gold. This is by the Army Painter. I prefer Army Painter's metallics to Vallejo's. So basically where I can, I use our Army Painters. And this is going to be for all the gold that's shown in the artwork. Now that is a couple of straps on his leg. He's got the hilts of his sword, and that somebody told me what it's called. It was like the cage around his hand to protect his hand with the sword, and then he's got the sword on the back. He's also got a load of gold details on those sheaths for his swords, and he's got a couple of buckles on his boots. That should be gold. There's plenty on the artwork. He's got a couple of, he's got, what would you call that? There's like multiple buckles. He's got some at the top of his boots and those straps across the bottom I also did in gold. He's got a medallion on his chest, and he's got a couple of buttons on that purple sash, and he's got some like dangly, feathery parts to the sash as well in gold. It's all on the artwork. Follow along with that if the video is going a little bit quick for you there. And at the end, we'll do some more gold that is depicted on the art, but it's just really a highlight detailing at the end. I'm going to use Gory Red just to paint in his sword handles because they looked quite red in the artwork. So that's the only bit of red. This is a model that you're switching through quite a few colours, but I actually found it really, really, really enjoyable. I really enjoyed painting this model, which is unusual when it involves tons of colours. I find that quite tedious swapping paints over and over again, but this seemed to be the perfect balance. It was really, really enjoyable for me. It's Claymore Blade for his sword. That's the Army Painters, as I mentioned, prefer their metallics. Then I'm going to use Army Painter's Wash. This is the blue tone version, so it's like a really darkish blue tone. So this is really, really good on that electric blue. It's going to darken it down a little bit and really, really give me those shadows that you want. So I'm letting this flow in between all the folds around the bottom of his coat and under his arms, and that's all the dark areas. I'm trying to get this tone into to darken that down and make it look like the shadowing. I'm going to use the light tone for his orange, his skin as well. So on the khaki, the Bonewhite parts that I've painted on him. So yeah, that dwarf skin, his khaki, and the Bonewhite, all with this light tone. I'm just darkening it down a little bit because he's quite a bright model and he's quite bright artwork, so I don't want to darken it very much. However, I am going to use Survivor shader on all of the gold and silver. I just like the way black shader really tarnishes metal and really, really brings out the detail and just makes it, to me, personally, I think it makes it look a lot more metallic with a dark shader on. Not dirty, but just tarnished. So that's my choice there. You could use any of the others, it's up to you, but my personal recommendation is black shader, and I'm just showing it you now. So that's the easiest work, a base coat and the washers to darken it down. And you could stop there if you don't want to go into the highlighting. I think that's pretty good like that. I've made sure none of the washers pooled, so it's quite a nice, you know, transition between the light and the dark bits. So you could stop there, but I am going to go on to highlight and show you that next. And we're going to start with Dwarf Skin again and just catching very watered down amount on my brush, just catching that on all the raised parts of all the orange before. So his sort of elbows, any of the folds on his arms as well. And then I'm just going to go around the edges and all the pokey out bits around this sort of the bottom bit that's sticking out from under his coat. So just catching all the bits pointing out, leaving the shade in the recesses. Then I'm going to use some gold yellow by Vallejo. Again, this is heavily watered down, and that's just going to really blend it nicely. And now I'm going to put some fine lines on all those creases on his arms, and then I'm just going to catch a couple of the most extreme tips of the undergarment that's sticking out at the bottom. So just a little dot on each fold that's just pointing out, and that's just going to blend that orange and yellow in nice and realistic, make that look really, really good. For his blue coat, I'm going to get out electric blue again, and paint on some thick, by thick I mean wide, sorry. So this is heavily watered down again, but I'm going to paint on some wide lines on each of those folds, really just giving me some room to work with the highlight that I do next. So these are all quite thick. Again, he's got creases all over him. You're just going to have to rotate the model, find all of the creases, find all of the edges, all the bits that are sticking out. Across his back, he's got a bunch as well. And then on his shirt, he's got some as well. I'm not going to highlight the edges of his blue cloak because we're going to paint that in gold later as it looks like on the artwork. Then I'm going to mix in some white prime with that, about 50-50, half and half, a dot of each. And now I'm going to paint on some very, very thin lines down those wider lines, down the very, very center, making it look like that light's really reflecting off the most extreme pointy out bits. For the purple sash, we're just going to use one highlight. I'm going to mix in some Blue Violet by Vallejo and mix that with the Royal Purple, about 50-50. And then I'm just going to do some edge highlighting, any of the edge of the sash you can get to. I did the collar around his neck before I realized that was also gold, so do not bother doing that. I'm just going to do the same as I did with the orange underneath and just kind of catch those raised bits of the folds at the bottom and any of the edges of his sash. We're going to use Gory Red, just painting on just basically a line on each side of those sword handles, just bringing some colour back into that because the black wash had spread onto it. Bonewhite's going to be the only highlight on any of those Bonewhite areas, so that frilly bit on his left hand, his glove, and it's just going to be edge highlighting for this. This is only slightly watered down. I didn't want it to run anywhere, and I'm not too bothered about the blending. I don't mind it being quite contrastial. I only use the light tone, so it's going to be very, very easy to blend that in nicely. Claymore Blade, again, this isn't particularly watered down. I don't often water down the metallics. But I'm just going to edge highlight the sword, just make it look like the light's catching off the sort of inverted air quotes sharp bits of the sword. This is not sharp. He couldn't cut me with that. He tried and failed. Necromancer Cloak is a dark grey by the Army Paint. I don't have one of these in Vallejo set, so I often use Necromancer's Cloak. And I'm just going to edge highlight his boots. And there's lots and lots of edges. There's lots and lots of folds. You want to catch some on his heels. Anywhere the light would reflect off of boots, just catch that. It's quite close to black, so it does look, it's going to look pretty realistic as a highlighting just straight off the bat. Again, it's watered down, probably about 25% water to paint here, and that's just going to make that blend more easily. Then I'm going to dry brush with no water in that paint, just on his hair, and just make that, get a bit of highlighting in as though the light's hitting the top of his head. Then we're going to switch back to bright gold, and we're going to go round all the gold bits that we painted and then tarnished, and we're just going to edge highlight all of those. So just catch a nice clean bit, a nice new bit of this bright gold along all the edges where either the metal would have been scraped or just the light is hitting those edges and shining off of it. And there's plenty to do, as I mentioned when we were doing the base coat. There's metal all over him, so gonna have to go around and catch all of that. Touch up anywhere the blue tone had settled, so you don't have some weird blue gold. And then on his sort of his handguard, that cage around his hand, there's a lot of details in there. You're going to want to be very careful. I'm using the side of the brush. I'm almost dry brushing that onto the cage and bringing out all those details. Then I'm going to freehand, as it shows you in the artwork, he's got loads of gold on his blue jacket, and so I'm going to paint that on by freehand. It is quite difficult. There is no detailing on the model, so really take your time, but just painting on some lines around the edge of his sleeves and this jacket part, as you can see. Try and do that if you'd like it to look a little bit more like the artwork. Then I'm just going to use dead black, paint the base in, make him pop out from the base. And then I just thought his sword was a little bit boring, so for this model I am going to add some Glistening Blood. This is by the Army Painter. It's a quite glossy red, looks a little bit like wet blood, and we're just going to splat that up his sword slightly, not too much, trying to keep it subtle this time. And there he is, completely finished. I'm chuffed with this model. I've really enjoyed painting. That was a big surprise. It took me an hour and 56 minutes. It was quite a long time, well, at least for me. Thank you to Stephen for requesting this one. I know he likes to set me a challenge, and this was a challenge, but it was also thoroughly enjoyable, as I've mentioned. If you've not painted this guy, I suggest you give it a go. I would have completely overlooked him, but the bright colours is really refreshing, something different to do. Thank you all very much for watching. Remember, there's a video every Friday, so please do subscribe. Also, let's smash that motivational challenge. 60 subscribers, that sounds easy peasy for this community, or 1 Patreon sub, and then we'll do a Green Horde video the Friday that goal's met. Otherwise, there'll be something different next week. Either way, we win, right? Thank you all very much for watching.